greet you. We are about to start this conference in just a few minutes.
La ministre arrive, s'il vous plaît, mesdames et messieurs. La ministre...
The Minister for Education has just arrived, ladies and gentlemen.
Bonjour.
Madam Prime Minister, Minister for Education and Research, hello everyone. I want to welcome all participants who are here in person on the premises of France Education International in Sèvres, in the Paris suburb, and also to all of those who are online with us today for this international and European conference called AI in Education, what type of framework for what types of use. This conference falls within the French AI Action Summit, which is organized by France on the 10th and 11th of February. It is streamed online and benefits by simultaneous interpretation service. Without further ado, please welcome Madame Elisabeth Borne, former Prime Minister, Minister for Education, Higher Education and Research. Mr. Prefect, Director General of France Education International, who are welcoming us in this great venue, dear Mayor Grégoire de la Roncière, dear Rector Etienne Champion, ladies and gentlemen, directors of various units and organizations, dear experts of Unesco and the member states of the European Union, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be here today to kick off this day of conference, which should be very constructive and exciting. artificial intelligence is not a revolution to come, it is a revolution in motion, very current, upending everything, our economies, our professions, the ways we think, the ways we work, the ways we teach. It reinvents our daily lives at lightning speed, and France did not wait before it took on its full share and role. As early as 2018, we embarked on a national strategy for AI with massive investments of 2.5 billion euros in the context of the 2030 France plan, which provided defining structure for the entire sector. Jointly with Canada and G7 Summit, we launched the World Partnership on AI to promote ethical and responsible AI. In 2023, when I served as Prime Minister for France, we set up the so-called AI Committee to provide well-controlled and disciplined usage for AI. This year, in 2025, we are launching 9 AI clusters with 360 million euros of investments to shore up our innovation ecosystems. But we need to go much further by making sure that AI becomes an instrument to serve the greater number, especially our educational system. Now, in our classes, in our schools, in the university auditoriums, we clearly observe that our students and pupils can't wait. Almost all of them have been using AI solutions. Conversely, fewer than 20% of our teachers have been embracing AI in their daily professional practice. We need to be called into action by this, our responsibility to support all of the educators and teachers so that they embrace AI in an enlightened and effective way to avoid a gap and a difference which would weaken the transmission of knowledge. So our challenge ahead is gigantic. We need to give the means and resources for teachers and educators to embrace and appropriate this technology, not to replace them, but to augment them in their key roles and capabilities. In June of 2024, we embarked on a large nationwide consultation effort on the use of AI in education. It's been conducted in the first half of 2025, engaging all of the schooling and university staff, including teachers, educators and administrators, as well as parents association. We also call on all educational stakeholders to enrich this collective thinking process. Following this consultation effort, a framework for use will be published in the spring. This educational didactical document will set the scene for usage of AI in the classrooms as well as in the administration by defining a set of clear rules. With respect to pupils and students, we are starting a first online session for the high school levels as soon as September 2025. They will develop the basics of prompting to learn the building blocks of AI, how it works, what it means, what are their challenges, how data is managed, and what environmental impact it all has. It will be a mandatory fourth pathway for year 4 and year 5 and accessible to all pupils and students who want to get trained in it. It will obviously be made available to all teachers. Also, we've been experimenting generative AI solutions in support and in the service of the national education system staff based on a generative AI solution called Alberts, which has proved already effective by helping the HR community of the national education administration, freeing up time for staff to focus on more human activities. We'll be extending this initiative to all of the regions. And we are also embarking on a strategic initiative to develop a so-called sovereign AI solution, which will be dedicated to the teachers. And France 2030 has launched a call for project with a 20 million euro budget, and it will be launched in the summer of 2025. Its goal will be to set up an open, transparent, and sustainable AI service and solution which will help teachers to prepare for their classes, to correct their homeworks, and enrich their educational practices. This tool should be fully operational in the schooling year 2025-2026. AI will not replace human beings. It augments them. It enables them to go further. It should be a driver for teachers, a tool and instrument for our students and pupils, and an engine for our country. It should support, it should reinforce, it should shed light on things. This revolution should be thought through at the national, but also at the European and international level and scale. This is a challenge of the French AI Action Summit, which is being organized in Paris on the 10th and 11th of February next week. And we are fully engaged to promote an ethical, inclusive AI service which will respect our values. It is a gigantic challenge, but together we'll be able to meet it, being bold, being demanding, being ambitious, because we have a revolution at hand, and because France must be on the vanguard of it. If we want it, the future is for us. Thank you.
Je vous remercie. Je donne...
Thank you very much, Madam Minister. I would like to give the floor to the Director General for Education, Youth, Sport and Culture of the European Commission, Pia Arenkilde-Hansen, speaking from Brussels. Thank you very much, Madam Minister, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure and honor to take part in this major event in the context of this AI Action Summit, which is being organized by France. I would like to thank you, Madam Minister, for bringing this subject of education and AI in education to the forefront. Digital skills are, in fact, skills which are of basic need. We know this, and you have reminded this, Madam Minister. AI did not emerge just in 2025. But its acceleration and its integration in our daily lives have been happening in a meteoric manner, especially since the launch of ChatGPT in 2022. It has been upending learning and teaching methods in our schools and universities, just as it has been transforming working methods in the workplace. And this is one of the reasons why AI is one of the key ingredients in the so-called competitive compass presented by President von der Leyen a few days ago. Its challenges are being taken into account both for innovation purposes and for the development of a union of skills, quote unquote, and the need to prepare European citizens for the accelerations and for the changes of a largely digitized world. It is a question of maximizing opportunities for this AI transition while controlling the associated risks, as you rightly said, Madam Minister. Educators and students in Europe should be able to benefit from AI services and solutions in terms of personalized teaching and in terms of learning experience. But also, they need to have AI tools available which are developed and deployed in an ethical manner and which are human-centered. This is why values such as protection of data, confidentiality, transparency, inclusion, and privacy remain essential principles. This direction has been given by the recent European AI Act, which has come into force since last summer, which, next to other European programs in the digital field, will be a capital starting point for the educational disciplines. Right from now, we need to examine what impact this legislative framework on the developing AI services and solutions. And my services will publish a report on this aspect in spring. Digital skills will make it possible for the educational fields to control change. The member states of the European Union must work together to increase the skills and capabilities of all stakeholders, be they pupils, students, be they teachers and administrators. To fully play its role in the field of AI, education needs to address several challenges simultaneously. Number one, targeted and ambitious efforts are needed at the various levels of formal education, but also in lifelong learning. We need to build up a robust foundation of AI-related knowledge and skills, and these efforts must foster both basic skills and specialized and/or advanced skills. Teachers and educators who are on the front line should be trained in how, when, and why to use AI tools. And the action by the European Commission in this field, and in particular that of the Directorate General for Education, Youth, Sport and Culture, is being conducted in the various fields. Our guidelines on the ethical use of AI in education, which were published in 2022, we've been discussing AI, of course, for many years, will be revised in the course of 2025. AI projects which are funded under the Erasmus Plus program, which already were included in the priorities for 2019 and for 2022, will again feature in the top priorities for 2025 with a focus on generative AI. This morning, you'll be talking about the AI 4T, i.e. AI for and by teachers, which is a project which is led by 5 member states and 12 partners, including France Education International, who are working together and who have extended their collaboration efforts to other EU members. We also have the EU Council recommendations on digital education and skills, which were adopted in November of 2023 as part of the Digital Education Action Plan, which represents a significant commitment by EU education ministers to universal access to digital education. They identify AI as a theme of strategic importance, which requires a closer cooperation between member states and the European Commission. The policy dialogue on AI in education, which was held in May of 2024 in Ghent, in Belgium, under the Belgian EU presidency, as well as today's event, are demonstrating this very well. Many member states have launched action plans and initiatives that can nurture our sharing of experience as well as joint projects at the scale of the European Union. Our Executive Vice President, Roxana Vinsatu, will be presenting the so-called Union of Skills to accelerate the qualification of skills in the job market, including AI-related skills. Digital skills have to be gained and acquired from the early stages of life and throughout life, and it will be critical that we strengthen cooperation across all educational sectors. The Union of Skills will, among others, include an action plan to help member states strengthen the development of these basic skills, including in literacy and mathematical skills, including in the European education area, and as the latest PISA results generated concerns on a number of areas. Numerical skills are as fundamental, and this is something you have mentioned with the initiatives which are being put forward, which shows the gigantic challenges posed by AI. The international study of 5-year students in data literacy, published in November last year, shows an alarming situation. 43% of European Union students, against a 15% goal, have no numerical skill or only have limited skills in this respect. In the face of this observation, we have no other choice than to take action, and to take action quickly. As you said rightly so this morning, it is an emergency, and our competitiveness is at stake, our resilience is at stake, and our strategic autonomy is at stake as well. The Union of Skills will also feature a strategic plan for teaching STEMs education in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The challenges connected with AI will be taken into account in our contribution to the Union of Skills package, and will feature prominently in the ongoing review of the Digital Education Action Plan and the roadmap for the future of digital education and training by the end of 2025. This roadmap will bring us to prepare a proposal on the effective and ethical use of AI in education and training, as well as actions to support the member states in order to implement the AI Act in this critical area. And these joint activities and actions will shore up the investments into AI solutions and services by member states in their education systems. I wish you a fruitful and constructive day of discussion. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, cher Pierre.
Thank you very much, dear Pierre. Have a great day, and thank you for speaking to us live online as we kick off this conference. Before we ask our first panel, we'll watch a short video reviewing the stakes and challenges of AI, artificial intelligence in education, for education in France. What challenges for AI in education? Artificial AI in education is about accultural and training pupils, students, and parents into AI, educating the pupils and students in the challenges of AI, learning with AI, programming AI, how to teach and learn with AI solutions and services, engaging all of the actors in educational AI services will help developing digital services which are adapted to the needs of all pupils and students. Innovative AI services will be developed to assist teachers in implementing differentiation and personalization of learning. This collaboration in education will help build up a shared scientific culture on AI, which will be adapted to the needs of schools. How to accelerate innovation. New contracting arrangements help accelerate innovation through public-private partnerships. Research and development phase enables a prototype to be built jointly with the teachers. This solution is first tested on a small scale in volunteer classes before being mainstream nationwide. Scaling up requires quality control of the services and compliance with an ethical and legal framework. What are the innovative digital services which are developed in France for school? The AI Innovation Partnership provides digital services in French, particularly for reading and writing, and in mathematics to work on calculation and problem solving. In addition, another digital service enables oral English to be practiced at school. Now, France has been supporting the development of AI-based educational services in order to teach and to learn, in order to train enlightened citizens, and to have boys and girls discover the professions of digital technology. Learning, sharing, innovating. This policy falls within the national AI strategy of France and of that of the Digital Education Action Plan by the European Union.
Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Donc je suis
Greetings to all. I'm Marc de Falco, Inspector General for Education, Sport and Research. A great honor for me to be moderating this very high-level panel discussion about AI in education. We have just heard Madam Minister and Madam Director General, who have reminded us of the importance of artificial intelligence, and particularly generative AI, in education. This, of course, creates a number of challenges. We need to prepare for these, to face these challenges, and also create a framework, notwithstanding whatever technological pressure requires us to be responsive. We need to take the time to ask the right questions, which is why we are fortunate enough today to have a high-quality panel, which I shall now introduce. We have Andreas Schleicher, Director of Education and Skills at the OECD, Villano Kyriazi, Head of Education Policy Division at the Council of Europe, Georgi Dimitrov, Head of Digital Education Unit at the European Commission, Audran Le Baron, Director for Digital Services for Education at the National French Ministry, and Colin de la Higuera, Professor and UNESCO Relied Chair on AI and Free Educational Resources. So let us kick off with a question. What is the role that your respective institutions play in the world of AI? Let us start with Mr. Kyriazi. What is the Council of Europe doing about AI? Greetings, and many thanks for inviting the Council of Europe to this panel discussion. For an organization such as the Council, which has a very specific mandate, namely the protection of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law, we have a framework. In May of last year, we initiated a framework convention about AI, human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. And this new convention, which was drafted over a period of 2 years by a specific committee with the involvement of all member states, civil society, and various experts, reflects the European Convention of Human Rights, which is the best known convention of our organization, of course. So in addition to other political recommendations and guidelines and legislation, this framework sets out the basic principles to allow us to protect human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. It also develops and lays out a series of obligations for public players and other elements related to the evaluation of risk in public policies when IA systems are being used. So all sectors within the organization for the development of public policies, including education, are now working within that framework to draft education policies in education, in health, in justice, and so on, within the general principles of the Framework Convention. And in the field of education, our main target is, on the one hand, to protect the integrity and quality of education and ensure that public authorities can guarantee this, and to place the higher interests of children, who are our pupils and students, as a key priority when introducing AI into the education system or when using AI in the classroom. Those are the two elements, and that is the position of the Council of Europe in the field of education. Andreas Schleicher, what part does the OECD play in this respect?
The first is we try to anticipate the evolution of AI capabilities. You may know our work on PISA, where we test the capacities of students, and the survey of adult skills, where we test the capacity of adults. And we do exactly the same thing for AI systems at the frontier. We want to study how well do they perform on capabilities that are important for humans. Cognitive, social, emotional capabilities. The idea is simply that we can better prepare ourselves for this, that we don't get surprised every time a new version of ChatGPT comes out. So it's a science of studying AI capabilities. Second is to work on AI systems to facilitate learning. We have seen in the video some really good examples. AI has just an amazing potential to change the way we learn and to make learning more adaptive, more granular, more interactive. So we study the frontier of what is happening in different education systems and how we can learn from that. And the third area is also important, and that's actually quite similar to what the Council of Europe just explained. We try to work on opportunities, guidelines, and guardrails for the effective use of artificial intelligence. Like when we invented cars, soon after we invented seatbelts and road signs, and that's the kind of third area where the OECD works with countries to study how we can make this a safe and trustworthy environment.
Merci. Georgi Dimitrov, excusez-moi. Pour la Commission européenne, donc quel est le rôle
So, Mr. Dimitrov for the European Commission. What is the Commission doing in the field of AI? Well, many thanks to Nathalie, to Audran, and I shall continue this in English.
Things on my side. What a coincidence. When the Commission and AI come into one sentence, the first thing that I would say is the question of regulation and legislation. And this is where the European Commission, together with the Member States and the European Parliament, legislate in certain domains. One very well-known example is the AI Act, which recently has come into force. Why is this relevant for the conversation today? Because even if it is a horizontal legislation, it does have some limited implication for education. Just for example, it does have some prohibitions for emotional recognition in assessment of education systems, etc. So, first point, general regulation and legislation. Second point, because I do represent DG Education, we are in a subsidiarity domain, so we do have very limited competences in the field of education. So what we do is we support, through the programs such as Erasmus, but also Horizon Europe, specific capacity building and adoption of AI in education. My Director General, Pia, whom you could not see because of a technical glitch, but she was there, has mentioned a project which I also wanted to mention, AI for Teachers. The French Ministry of Education is part of it. That's a very specific example of how we support teachers to use AI capabilities in everyday work. And this year, we have generative AI in education as a topic for policy experimentation. So we have some budgets, and the call in Erasmus is open. And the third and final point is what we do as soft law, if you like. So the Commission cannot regulate in education, obviously, so we provide recommendations to the Member States, such as proposals for Council recommendations, which the Council, if they agree with us, and all the Member States adopt. They did that recently, and for example, they asked us to work on topics such as AI literacy, and this is something which, in fact, we are working also together with Andreas Schleichert's team. All of this, to conclude, is not part of let's say, an isolated list of ad hoc activities, and is embedded in a bigger strategy, which is our Digital Education Action Plan, which is a multi-annual framework covering the multi-annual financial cycle of the European Commission, which is 7 years. So all of this is embedded in a bigger strategy, which aims at a more coherent approach towards digital education and AI.
Merci. Audran Baron, donc quel rôle pour le...
Thank you. Mr. Le Baron, what is the role of the Ministry in the field of AI? Well, first of all, as Director of Digital for our Ministry, we consider AI as a tool that can be put at the service of our administration in order to facilitate a number of tasks. It is also a tool for educators and teachers, for learning. Of course, that doesn't didn't start with generative AI. We've looked at how AI can work on the personalization of teaching, of learning. But of course, with generative AI, the possibilities are multiple. But for educators and what they do on a daily basis, they need to prepare their courses, they need to correct homework, and generative AI can be extremely interesting for them to allow educators to focus on human skills. So AI as a tool, and then of course we at the Ministry of Education, with of course the digital department, but also the schools and general inspectorate departments, are interested in AI as something that the children, our pupils, need to be educated about through a number of aspects. Everyone needs to have a minimum basic knowledge of AI, of how it works, what its limitations and biases are. And one needs to keep a critical mind in the face of that technology. We're also going to be interested in creating a certain literacy in the manner in which they can use it efficiently and responsibly, because there is, of course, an environmental footprint. And then among pupils, some pupils will need to acquire a specialization in digital. And one of the great challenges is also gender equality and the feminization of AI jobs and careers. And then we also need to analyze AI in what it can contribute, or what it's going to modify in the day-to-day practice of teachers and educators. AI is there. The minister said so earlier. It is being used by a large majority of high school students, at least, and we need to take that into account, and we need to question the manner in which we assess homework. And it also poses a number of questions on the motivation of students, motivation to learn. So, Colin de la Higuera, I'm turning towards you as a representative of academia in this panel discussion. What do universities need to do about AI? Thank you. Well, we heard the minister use the word revolution 5 times. Revolution has a special meaning in France. So how can you work along with a revolution? It's not in the same way as you work with an evolution. What academia can do is to provide immediate support. There are a lot of things that need to be done urgently, much more action-based research, working with high schools, working with educated teams, or perhaps even clinical research. Think about hospitals where experimentation is being conducted and supported by researchers with a number of protocols. All of this to avoid, in a hospital setting, that the weight of big pharma be too strong. But then there's another industry that is also very powerful, and very clear protocols need to be drawn up to identify what works and what doesn't. And then in a revolution, one must also think about what is going to happen after the revolution. We need to think about the fact that today's young people, where will these young people be 5 or 10 years down the road? And they need to be involved in this revolution, of course. And there were wonderful examples. In Italy, for instance, where they brought together young people and talked to them, allowed them to talk about what AI-based education do they most need. So academia can work in research, but in very unusual manners. Thank you for all of your answers, which allow us to better understand the articulation of your institutions. Madam Minister talked earlier about the framework for the use of AI with consultations that are underway, and that framework echoes a number of other documents or proceedings from all of our institutions, and naturally leads us to another question, which is, why is it crucial to create a framework for the use of AI in education? And beyond the regulation itself, should there be more support? And can it also help educators in their work? Mr. Dimitrov, what is the European Commission's opinion?
We are right now in the beginning of a new mandate at the European level. As you know, just 2 months ago, the new Commission started. And I would like to focus on two main points, and I will take a little bit of a step back when replying this, just because we're seeing a very new dynamics at the work of the EU. The first is the question of competitiveness, which has now become the key guiding principle of this Commission, along the question of strategic autonomy and the question of competitiveness, which the President von der Leyen put forward in just 10 days ago with the competitiveness compass, in terms of basically enabling Europe to be able to compete at the European level in a situation where everything is transactional and everything is hyper-competitive, and a big uncertainty now is more the rule than the norm. And why is this important? It is because of the skill space and the human capital that we have, and the issue of the lack of relative competences and skills vis-à-vis, in particular, some economies and societies, and in particular in fields such as artificial intelligence and such as technology. My Director General spoke of the Union of Skills, which we are going to present in a few weeks. We are working very intensively on this now. And this is the attempt where we would like to align better also education and training, as well as the needs of the labor market, not because the one should serve the other, but because they also need to be brought together in order to ensure more symmetry. The minister spoke of asymmetry, and I think it is very important to bring more symmetry in these two worlds. So one question that is going to guide us is quite important, and this is competitiveness and how, because of AI, we need to step up in certain fields, and I know that France is doing their really admirable job with the summit. The second question is very much different, which is relevant for us when we speak about AI and education, and this is the attack, if you like, on citizenship, on democracy, and on rule of law to a certain extent, and where we need more preparedness in our education systems because of foreign interference, because of disinformation, because of this type of, let's say, massive disinformation campaigns. Why is that relevant to AI? Because developing AI literacy and digital literacy is fundamental to equip the young people to be able to navigate this space. There are surveys which show us that young people, pupils, when they are asked about AI, they say that among the most important things which worry them is deep fakes used for cyberbullying. So this is a use case of AI, unfortunately, which is very, very prevalent. And it is very important to equip also the education and training systems with the type of skills that would prepare them to raise this preparedness. And that's why AI literacy is such an important aspect of the work. And going forward, I think we're going to see some very important initiatives in this field together with the OECD, which I think is also the right way to go, because this cannot be something invented only in one, let's say, part of the world. So these two issues are very, very important for the current agenda, driving AI and also, to some extent, AI and education.
Merci. Villano.
Thank you. Villano Kirasi for the Council of Europe. Another question. Why a framework? Thank you for your interesting question. It's also a key focus for us with member states and our experts. Let me just discuss 4 aspects of this. The first one is the main stakeholders in the world of education. We have students and pupils on the one hand, and educators and teachers on the other one. So at the heart of our action, I would say that the need for a framework is intertwined with quality of education, quality of teaching, and also evaluation of the methods that are used by teachers. So we can create a framework to give very clear orientations, but also to develop a whole body of resources that need to be made available for teachers, but that needs to be supported with ongoing education for all teachers, and not just initial education in universities and so on. But in order to preserve the quality of teaching and to make appropriate educational choices when allowing AI to enter the classroom, but also for teachers, in addition to training, there is a question of responsibility, of disempowerment. Are we going to let AI decide, evaluate, profile the students, pick, choose, make choices in lieu of the educators? All of this needs to be organized. Teachers cannot be left alone in the classroom. This is, of course, nothing new. It existed before AI, but AI could exacerbate these trends, exacerbate inequality, exacerbate the digital divide. So how can one ensure the intellectual development of our children? That would be a first element. A second element, and that is the role of research and academia. Up until now, there have been hundreds and hundreds of surveys, pieces of research that have assessed the use of AI in education, but they tend to stop and restrict themselves to efficiency. So do not factor in other elements such as security in terms of cognitive or intellectual development of children. They look much more at specific cases, how automation can improve such a skill or such a academic result. But there are no assessments on the classroom size or on the broader scale of the education system as a whole, and that is what research needs to do. Frameworks need to dedicate funds to universities, to academics, in their research about the effects of all of this on the development of children when AI systems are used. A third dimension for the Council of Europe is the higher interest of children. What we call one of the 4 missions of education is also personal development of children. So we would need to be in a position to create a framework for this that could give a direction to teachers in order for them to pay attention to the physiological and psychological development of children, as well as language and social skills when children are interacting with AI systems. Are these communication and language skills, will they be affected by intensive use of AI within the education system? So that would be the third aspect. And the fourth aspect is linked to that. Secondary and primary education, but also university. There's the question of talent in AI. In order to develop AI, compared to other regions of the world, and preserve or enhance competitiveness within Europe, but also make competitiveness something that fits in with the European values, human rights, democracy, and so on. Developing new and growing new talent is, of course, a mission, a mandate for universities. We have also discussed within our council the various types of partnerships that can exist between public and private sector. There's always an opposition that's made. They say, okay, if there's more regulation, there will be less innovation. I am not quite sure that that is truly the case. If you look at the pharmaceutical industry and the healthcare sector more broadly, it's one of the most regulated sectors in the world, but it's still brimming with innovation. So regulation does not necessarily stifle innovation, and that also applies to AI. When people talk about a kind of solidarity within a broader Europe, within the Council of Europe, with its 46 member states, there's also a question of open source resources. The most developed countries, which have the highest economic power, not just in developing AI but also in education, should, based on principles of solidarity, offer open source to other, smaller nations that have a less economic clout, in order to avoid generating a new digital divide within Europe. Thank you.
Andreas Schleicher for the OECD. Why put a framework on AI in education?
And to frame this discussion, AI is not a magic power. It's just an incredible amplifier, an amazing accelerator. It's going to amplify good ideas and good educational practice in exactly the same way it amplifies poor ideas and poor educational practice. It can make you as a teacher the designer of amazing learning environments, or it can make you the slave of scripted algorithms and lesson plans. AI can make education more inclusive than we have ever seen. If you have, dyslexia, AI can put you on a level playing field with anybody else, actually super empower you. But we've also seen how AI can amplify almost any form of inequality in education. I think this is the way we need to look at this. If we just leave it on its own, it's going to amplify whatever it gets into its hands. Some people say AI is ethically neutral, probably, but it's always in the hands of people who are not neutral. And again, that makes the framing of this discussion so important. Now, I don't believe that we can do that all top down. The evolution of this kind of technologies is so fast that hierarchical structures respond far too slow. We need to get a lot of more of this framing into the classroom at the front line, where we do not engage educators in the design of those solutions. They're not going to help us with implementation. And I think that's a mistake that we've made too often in the technology front. We have sold things to people rather than engaging them in the design. I think there's a lot, actually, we in Europe can learn from some countries in Asia. If you look to Korea, every teacher is part of a research, team. They're actually engaging in, ideas, design, development, implementation of those kinds of technologies. So building that framing is not just, a matter of governments doing regulation, but really about engaging people at the front line and understanding the ethics of it. Where can AI help us? Where can it hinder us? And to become the navigators of what's going to continue in incredibly dynamic field. The last point, and I want to reinforce the point from the European Commission here, is AI capabilities. We will always have to navigate protection and enabling. And probably age specific, for small kids, probably AI is not a great tool in any form. For older ones, it's an amazing tool, but I think we have to find that right balance between protecting from the risks and actually enabling capabilities. And in our last PISA assessment, we found that less than half of 15-year-olds could reliably distinguish fact from opinion. In a world, of traditional education, it doesn't matter. You can trust your school book, you just learn it by heart, and you'll be very successful. In a world of AI, that puts you at an incredible risk. And in a way, the digital competencies that we need to develop these days have very little to do with technology. It's about ethics, ethical decision making. It's about navigating ambiguity. It's about distinguishing fact from opinion. They're actually deeply human capabilities where we need to become a lot better.
Merci. Honorant le Baron, donc même question par rapport à...
So, Audran Le Baron, question for you, the Minister. I won't try and repeat what already has been said brilliantly, possibly focusing that on the fact that the framework can free up usage, can protect and free up use and usage. In the face of no framework, there would be two attitudes. No framework means everything goes, everything flies, everything is permitted, and this is not what we want, because we know the risks and threats with AI, especially general public AIs, with little privacy, with lots of bias. So not everything should be accepted. The other end of the spectrum is no action is taken. It inhibits because there's no framework. I won't move until there's a framework, but we need to educate our pupils and students to AI and how to embrace it and how to use it. So we need a framework. A framework is needed to set the stage, to set things. And what we started to do in France by embarking on a large consultation process, teachers, administrators, pupils, and parents associations, everyone thanked us for this initiative and welcomed our draft framework. Now there are a number of proposals on the table, a set of recommendations, things will be refined, things will be adjusted, but basically they said thank you for this framework. Now, it also makes it possible to clarify things, because we are in a context when there are double binds, contradictory injunctions. Apparently, at least, we are being told that AI is the future, that AI is essential, that it will upend every profession, that we have to accustom our students and pupils. Fine. Yet, at the same time, there is public debate, civic debate on the role and place of screens, the toxicity of using social media, some digital solutions, AI services. So you can be paralyzed by this double bind, contradictory set of injunctions. So there shouldn't be any double bind when you look at things closely. If you set guidelines, the do's, the don'ts, the conditions for that, giving peace of mind and reassurance to everyone, making it possible for us to move forward. And as is typical and classic in the face of radical change, you have those 10% of enthusiasts and early movers, early adopters. You have the 80% of those who have no firm belief. And then you have the other 10% who are the reluctant ones. And the framework needs to cater for all these three categories. The early adopters and enthusiasts haven't waited for a framework to engage in AI, most of them doing it very decently, very well, yet some being too early adopters, too enthusiastic and being carried away and go beyond some limits and boundaries which are not desirable. So the framework sets these boundaries and protects everyone, protects students and pupils, the responsibility of teachers in usage. For the 80% who have no firm beliefs on this all, well, it will help them move out of paralysis in the face of these double binds to see the way ahead, to head to while respecting the boundaries and freeing up usage and start using AI solutions in the classroom. And for the reluctant ones, the idea is not that they should be forced to use AI, but at least that they become aware of the existence of AI, that their pupils and students use AI, and that they should take this into consideration, including the way to assess and evaluate and in their practice, in their teaching practice in their classroom. Well, for these teachers at large, possibly not so much for the 10% of early adopters and enthusiasts, but even for those above and beyond the framework, how can we make sure that teachers can appropriate AI solutions, and what support mechanisms can facilitate this, including acculturating teachers, training teachers, but also providing tools and solutions to help them implement these solutions. So the question on this panel is, what role and place can your institution have, and what kind of support mechanism do you think could be helpful to enable teachers to appropriate AI while considering all these challengers? Andreas Schleicher for OECD.
Some of our tools are very practical, like the framework that we're working on with the Commission on AI literacy. You know, it's a framework that will be available for anyone our measurement tools allow people to see, very concretely how well do, students, teachers, grasp and can utilize those kinds of AI technology. That's a very practical part. But we are also working to close the gap between what's possible and what's actually done in education. If we're honest, in education, we're not doing particularly well when it comes to leveraging technologies compared with other sectors. I think probably health and education are at the bottom of the list, really. I think we're just starting to see. We have still a very industrial work culture, a very kind of hierarchical work culture, and I think technology is the antithesis to this. We're trying to close this gap, We have, seen the possibilities, but if you're a teacher in a classroom, you often see a patchwork of digital solutions for you that are not interoperable, that are not compatible, and most importantly, that can't share the data. Basically, we have very isolated, siloed kind of solutions, and we try to work with countries through our Smart Data project to actually create a more interoperable, more seamless kind of infrastructure for this. And there's, again, a lot of room for peer learning and collaboration among countries to bring the possibilities closer to the front line. And I would even say, the gap between what is possible and what is being used hasn't become smaller in the last decade. It's actually become wider in most countries. And you can see, young people leaving school these days. It's not because they can't afford it. It's not because, they're sick. It's because they find learning boring, disengaging. It's no longer relevant to their current and future life. And I think a lot has to do with making learning environments more authentic, more, bringing what young people feel outside the world, bringing that into the world of learning. And again, closing that gap, that's where our tools really are targeted. So on the one end, the measurement, the frameworks that help us build standards, help us see where we are and where we can be, and then building the very practical tools.
Merci.
Thank you very much. Georgi Dimitrov?
And say that indeed the fragmentation in terms of digital adoption is amazing, and the inefficiency is very, very huge. And I think this is a big lesson for what we need to do next in terms of AI, because if you look back at history, which I think we should always learn from, we should really avoid going patchwork by, piece by piece. And it is very important also because of the ethical aspect that you've mentioned, because this time around, this technology brings a lot of, for some reasons, values in there. They are based often also on other languages, which are trained, Chinese and English, so we have, of course, some European models, but there are judgments already in the adoption of this technology. So it is very important to take a big picture view when we decide what to do in terms of integration of AI in education. And I think that we can actually look at experience in Europe and see that some countries are taking this holistic approach. So we have a counterfactual in Europe. I mean, you can look at Estonia, for example, a very interesting example, how they take it as an integrated approach. But my point is at the European level in terms of tools, and I think what is important to say is that we first of all do this together with the member states. So I want to take the opportunity to thank also the French colleagues. I mean, Axel, he is around, part of our Delta group. Just 3 bits of work. One, we are going to update right now the guidelines for teachers on AI and education. We adopted them just before ChatGPT came. Super bad timing. We should have waited. Nevertheless, they have been downloaded tens of thousands of times in 24 languages, seem to be very popular, but are now a little bit outdated. So this year, we will adopt those guidelines for teachers. Second point is we are working on digital education content guidelines, and this is related to the question of dissemination and creation of content, also with Gen AI, specifically by teachers. I mean, we absolutely need to have the teachers drive that change, because that doesn't work the other way around. And the last and final point I want to conclude with is that as part of the review of the Digital Education Action Plan I mentioned at the beginning, because currently we are reviewing everything, and as part of the new mandate, we'll put forward a 2030 roadmap on digital education and skills. We'll do this in a couple of months. or maybe later in the year. We want to look very carefully at the implication of legislation and regulation, which I've mentioned also earlier, because all of this has impact on education on a day-to-day basis. And it is very important to not fall in the GDPR experience where we are surprised and maybe we increase preparedness this time around. So we want to look at the impact of such legislative legislation right now at the education and training sector. And as part of the review, and corresponding to what the ministers have asked us, my Director General spoke about the Belgian presidency Ministerial when they discussed AI in education. They asked for a standardized approach. We want to put forward a more, let's say, integrated framework with some specific proposals so that perhaps some of this patchwork can be avoided this time around, and that should happen later in this year.
Merci. Villano Kiriazi.
Oui, merci.
Villano Kiriazi, with respect to support mechanisms, well, the Council of Europe, contrary to other organizations, also has a mandate and responsibility to pass educational and educational policy legislation. So as part of work by the Council of Europe, we could come up with binding instruments and conventions on education and integration of AI in education based on our statutes that we have developed some 220 conventions in various policy areas. With respect to such questions on AI in education, the Minister of Education in 2023, at their last meeting in Strasbourg, asked for a strategy to come up with a consistent framework relative to AI governance in the field of education, which would be made up of several aspects, and we are now in the phase of developing these instruments. 2 such instruments will be developed in 2025, 2 more in 26, and 2 more in 27. In 2025, we're in the process of developing and finalizing a recommendation for general policy on education and learning of AI. This will mainly be contributing AI-based literacy, and our experts advocate a 3-dimensional definition on technology, on practice, and on human beings. And this general policy recommendation will include some directions on how to integrate all this in the curricula, the educational methods, the training of teachers, the role of academia in all this. So this is the part on learning and teaching. Now, this instrument will also be supplemented by a toolkit for implementation. In 2026, we will be working on developing a more binding instrument on how to use AI in education. We heard today how AI should be used in management and similar fields and disciplines. This instrument could cover these aspects as well. And in 2026, it was just mentioned that several types of technology were being introduced in education, but for the time being, there's a lack of a common shared framework of reference to be able to assess these services and solutions and new technology before they're introduced into the classrooms, including AI solutions, which are not the only ones, so that we have the possibility to assess this at the European level based on similar and shared criteria and standards. This would help public authorities to ensure high quality standards, but it would also help the private sector, which could have very clear guidelines and stable guidelines as well as to the criteria which are required by the European education systems with respect to development of educational resources and solutions based on AI as well as other emerging technology. Because in order to be able to invest over the long term, the private sector needs clear guidelines, clear directions, and stability as well, with uniform standards being applicable across Europe, be it in Germany, France, Macedonia, or Albania. So this will be an important instrument. Now, with respect to the teachers, in 2027, we are planning to provide the member states with a white paper on the profession of teachers in the digital age, so that jointly with the member states we can plan for the future of education, jointly with the development of teaching and education in Europe. And the last instrument we started working on is a general policy paper on use of data and learning data, and how learning data can and should improve the educational processes. And last point, with respect to digital skills, this year the Council of Europe and the ministers are making 2025 the year of education to digital citizenship, and the various stakeholders are engaged in communication campaigns and other activities to encourage the acquisition of civic citizen-based digital skills by the young people. Roland Baron, well, at the French Ministry, we will take action both on training and the development of tools and instruments. And a number of recent announcements were made by the Minister for Education with respect to training and learning. A number of initiatives were started. We started with the setup of an online learning community. The name of it is CREA, which was launched on the distance learning platform, which is being used by a bit more than 1 million teachers in France. So this is a free voluntary community which has more than 3,000 teachers which logged on to this community, which help each other, which share and exchange. And we have started to look into AI in education because these are our 10% early adopters. So we already have an online community in place, which has been very active, very dynamic, which has made it possible to share and pool some best practice in this area, and which we've taken inspiration from at the central level to move forward. So there's this learning community in place. There are a number of training sessions and programs being implemented. We have mentioned AI for teachers, and 4 other members, apart from France, participated in this effort, which is continually being updated. So we have a host of training sessions and programs for teachers, for administrators, to scale up the skills on AI. There's also training and education of pupils and students, and the Minister for Education announced that a system of training with training modules using the well-known PICS method, which was used by the French education system, which will become a digital common potentially for all of Europe. So there are a number of debates and discussions with the European level and a number of member states, because PICS can be a common denominator to learn digital technology and AI, among others, for our pupils and students. So much for training and learning. And then you have the tools and instruments. And in this respect, it's been a number of years that France has been working on it, and we are not the only one in Europe on the way AI, including generative AI, but not only, can personalize training and learning and make the tools and instruments used more inclusive. And we've worked extensively with the so-called innovation partnership arrangements, which are procurement, public procurement arrangements, and the acronym P2AI is being used, Partnership for Innovation and AI, where we use partnerships with ed tech firms, including AI in the development of educational services. And the first P2AIs are being have been established for the first 3 years of primary school. Another P2 AI is done for the stage in between primary and in between secondary school and high school. This was announced by the Minister for Education. We're working on a P2 AI partnership agreement on an AI tool which would equip teachers and help them in their classrooms and in preparing classes, in preparing lessons, in preparing assessments, in preparing correction work for homeworks. And we have not forgotten the administration field for management. We've set up an incubator of digital services at the Ministry of Education, and we've been exploring possible use cases in the field of HR management. You heard the Minister for Education, i.e. to equip HR administrators with Gen AI instruments which will help them day in, day out in their daily tasks.
Guerra,
Thank you. So how can academia, more broadly organizations such as UNESCO, take part in all of this? Thank you. Let me just give you 3 examples, which in fact will illustrate a number of things that I've just heard. UNESCO last year produced a reference document, one for teachers, one for students. It's very complex to draw up, and it's a bit like you when you finished working on the European level. There is a sense that we haven't quite got there yet, that too many things are happening all the time, and that it's an ongoing process. So why is that difficult? Because in AI, there are, of course, many aspects that are human, that are related to ethics, and bringing these two things together is always very complicated. It's very difficult to find a teacher who can do both at the same time. So there's a major challenge there. We need to think long and hard about this. We need to invent an AI that can be taught with our resources, but we could also we also need to dream about educators with a much broader spectrum of skills. You were talking about AFRT earlier, and the decision made was to make everything very open. There's open source, of course, but there's also open access and open education, and I think that it's something that we're witnessing with AI. Manuals do not come top down. These manuals, these books, are much more horizontal now. Knowledge is becoming much more cross-functional or horizontal. And I think that is one way to achieve this. And then my third example might sound a little bit anecdotal, but within UNESCO, there's been a focus on the idea that the future of education through AI needs to empower and factor in young people. So around 15 countries, we started working with young people, and the question we asked was, now that there's AI, what's the purpose of learning? So a pretty tough question. It sounds obvious, but it really interrogates and really challenges these young people who are sometimes finding it hard to express or to understand why they are learning. And in fact, the reason why they're learning is not threatened by AI. They're not just learning because they need a diploma, or because AI would simply get rid of that. They learn because there's the notion of enjoyment, of understanding, of sociability. All of that is emerging. So I would say that the scientific or the academic community can work with young people through international exchanges to further knowledge. Thank you. Thank you. Many thanks to all of you for these extremely interesting answers. I'd say that perhaps in conclusion, what has been said, and what was also said by the Minister, earlier today and in your various presentations, all of this seems, people think that all of this was born in November 2022, but it's part of a much longer term process. There was the plan in 2018, and then of course in September 2022 the European Commission published its AI ethics framework a few weeks before the first European citizen placed a request in ChatGPT. So things do need to be revised in an ongoing manner, but we've seen how all of this can be factored in. But it's true to say that, is it a revolution? Is it an emergency? I don't know what the most suitable word would be. But there is an emergence of generative AI which is forcing us to take this into consideration in a different manner. And the fact that we're all sitting here around this table illustrates our determination to cooperate and to work together. There's a great variety of institutions around this table, but with responses to the issues in different manners and various approaches of these issues. But everyone is moving in the same direction, which is both based on the development of education, improving education, but also protecting citizens and particularly children, who are of course central in education. And that is why the question of the framework, as Audron was saying, is not just there to constrain, but it's also there to help grow and develop all of these notions all together. So again, many thanks for taking part in this panel discussion. We're now going to watch another video about the use of AI in teaching English in primary school. Digital at the service of foreign languages. Captain Kelly is a voice assistant for the teaching of English in elementary school.
Three.
1, 2, 3.
Listen and repeat. 7, 8, 9.
7, 8, 9.
Listen and repeat. 10, 11, 12.
10, 11, 12.
Okay,
Good work.
good work. Okay, sit down, please.
1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6. 7, 8, 9.
Amelia, how old are you?
5.
I'm 5. Repeat.
I'm 5.
Jack, how old are you?
I'm 10.
Okay.
How old are you?
I'm 5.
You're 5? Well done.
Very good. Listen.
How old are you?
I'm 11.
Are you sure? 11? 11?
Try again.
12.
How old are you?
I'm 12.
You're 12.
Very good.
Well done.
Yes, well done.
How old are you?
I'm 9.
You're 9? Well done.
Very good.
Listen and repeat. How old are you?
Louder.
How old are you? How old are you? I'm 8.
Is it correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, okay. Who wants to be Mr. or Mrs. Question? Who? Yes?
Ready for takeoff? Count with me. 5, 4,
3, 2, 1.
Passons maintenant à la deuxième.
So we're now going to proceed with the second panel discussion about the success of a project on the European level. And without further ado, we're going to listen to the Director General of France Éducation Internationale. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. After this panel discussion, which gave us an insight into the political orientations of AI in education, I'm now going to happy to introduce a more hands-on approach through France Éducation Internationale and its cooperation department, developing European projects as part of Erasmus Plus and the AI4T project funded by the European Commission, which will be presented now and is a fine reflection of what member states, members of the Delta Group, are achieving to facilitate understanding by teachers and by head teachers of AI in education by focusing on the essential, namely on students. Now is a brief presentation of the video before we listen to our ministerial level partners who are going to tell us about their experience of the project.
Bonjour à toutes et tous.
Greetings to all. Terribly sorry, but Margarita Romero can't be here to moderate this project, but I'm delighted to be here with my colleagues from AI4T, the project, and we have a French colleague and an Irish colleague. So AI4T was born in a quick-moving evolution of AI, including Gen AI. How did you collectively work to adapt this project to these fast evolutions? I will probably let Anthony answer that.
Nice. That's you.
Into our AI4T project. I hope you can hear me clearly now.
Yes, it's fine. Thanks. Go ahead,
No problem
LP.
at all. Very interesting to listen to the previous round table, and there were several references to our AI for Tea project, so delighted to share maybe some of the origin of that project. I suppose the purpose of any network or group or working group is to kind of foster some sort of collective learning, meaningful discussion and critical inquiry. And this actual project came out of one of those groups, the ET 2020 Digital Education, Learning, Teaching and Assessment Working Group. So it's Delta, more commonly known as Delta. And through this initiative, member states, collaborate, they exchange insights and elevate discussions that inform and shape educational policy across Europe and within their member states as well. And this particular project, AI for Tea, as was mentioned, a policy experimentation, came out of the key activities of this Delta working group. And particularly my colleague Boris is here from Slovenia, particularly a PLA in Slovenia in 2019, which explored the whole area of artificial intelligence in education. Now, from that peer learning event or activity, it produced significant insights with one central message emerging for all participants, that AI potentially could enhance teaching and learning. And there was insight provided there in terms of, its ability to impact upon personalized learning, smart teaching tools, streamlining administrative processes, and improving educational resources, which provoked rich conversation amongst all attendees there. The purpose of Delta really is to recognise that member states are at different stages in their understanding and adoption of all concepts, but in particular in this one, AI in education. And the project itself reflects a shared commitment to move beyond theoretical discussions. I think, as Colin mentioned in the round table, to see what this meant for practitioners in terms of action research. The project was inspired by the French Ministry, and I'm delighted that Axel is leading this conversation this morning, of National Education Youth, and they proposed and took the lead on the initiative. Ireland, our agency represented Ireland in terms of the Ministry's response, and other partners were particularly motivated by the collective ambition to engage directly with teachers. That's our day-to-day work, is to work with teachers here in Ireland. And I suppose maybe finally just to say before I hand over to Evelyn that with any policy experimentation there is a leap of faith really as regards the overall outcomes of the endeavour. But from a partner ministry perspective, we were very confident that the key ingredients in terms of the partners, in terms of the goals, objectives, were in place to explore AI and what it meant for classroom teaching and learning. I know Evelyn's going to take you through some of that coordination now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anthony. So nice to see you. Et maintenant, je me tourne vers Evelyne.
Let me now turn to Evelyn, who worked on this project, a project that brought together 5 ministries and up to 17 partners, so a very complex task that was made possible because it was steered by FEI. Well, let's pay tribute to who deserves tribute. It's the Directorate for Education in our ministry that had the idea of this 3 years before ChatGPT emerged. So very forward-thinking, and France Éducation Internationale had the great pleasure of coordinating this project with a large number of European partners, 17 partners within 5 member states: France, Italy, Ireland, Luxembourg and Slovenia. And naturally these 17 partners comprised high-level experts in the field of AI. The project aimed at creating tools that required a lot of discussion, of course, within the consortium to reach an agreement, to create a MOOC and AI for Tea, an awareness-raising tool, and a textbook or open online manual, which is here on the table. And these 2 tools were tools to raise awareness, but also to educate about AI, to educate teachers, but also head teachers, educators more broadly, educators of educators, and political decision makers. This was translated into the 5 languages of the consortium, but currently a lot of other countries are asking for it, both in Europe and elsewhere. So these 2 tools were, of course, tested before they were circulated more broadly by 1,000 educators across Europe. These tests allowed us to identify improvements that could be made and this has led to a number of guidelines which were circulated to the European Commission about the manner in which teaching and education in the field of AI could be improved and to make them a true asset for students and pupils. So these recommendations were passed on to the Commission, and I think that this project really encouraged support for these ministerial policies and the challenges of AI for education, and notably all of that for the greater good of children. Thank you. Let me turn towards my colleague. We have a representative, Gina Pina Russo from the Italian Ministry and Borut from the Slovenian Ministry remotely. So how was there a contribution of AI4T on the orientations of public policies? And what did you learn, or what did we learn from this?
The project for sure had a key role in shaping, let's say, the AI education policy, and we are very proud of this. Italy took the leadership of coordinating the involvement of teachers, students, and schools in general from diverse backgrounds, trying to ensure consistency in the selection criteria and in the deployment of the project across the 5 countries. As said before, despite an uncertainty, let's say, about the project at the very early stage, throughout the experimentation, we saw an increasing interest and awareness among the teachers on the AI potential in education. Now, the project used a hybrid training model, combining online resources and live webinars or on-site webinars, allowing the teachers to not only learn about the basic of AI and the ethical concerns, but also to experiment first and hand-on with the AI tools. Local researchers also shaped and customized the training to the local needs, the language and the culture of the place, still adhering to the national standard and policy. And also the webinars fostered cooperation and collaboration among the teachers who could share their case studies and the practice in the classroom. For sure it was the project provided valuable resources to teachers, but also led to the need of further AI training in country, which enhanced the digital, let's say, education plan, and it built on national and European strategy, not least the Digital Education Action Plan, and also paved the way, of course, to this kind of initiatives. We are participating today, this AI Summit in France, and also the AI Summit which took place last week in Italy, which gathered more than 1,500 among teachers and students, opening up again the debate on the importance of AI literacy in teacher professional development. So just a last word to say that this project was really an eye-opener for the teachers who participated in the project, equipping them with the basic tools of AI and the confidence and the awareness to navigate this era, while empowering us ministries, the countries involved, in lead the way to pioneer, let's say, this innovative technology under European leadership and guidance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gizupina, Borut, if you may. Hope you are with us. Yeah, thank you very much, Borut.
Yes, maybe from the perspective of policymakers, definitely AI4T, as one of the first Erasmus policy experimentation projects, provided evidence for policymakers from participating countries about teachers' expectation in upper secondary education, their satisfaction, perception of training for using AI in education, such as anticipation and practical value of concrete tools, relevant content, and pedagogical approaches for immediate use in teaching, and practical example and opportunities for collaborative learning. The evidence and findings of the project and evaluation highlight the need for ongoing practically oriented training and supporting teachers in effectively integrating the latest AI solution into their teaching practices and classroom, combining theoretical knowledge with, of course, practical application. For example, the findings for Slovenia were very important because the sample in Slovenia consisted of teachers with no special knowledge on AI from more than half of upper secondary schools in Slovenia. But of course, the results were very helpful also for other countries too. Namely, the project results effectively encourage enhancing policymakers as well as teacher trainers' mindset for further action in participating countries such as co-financing national project on AI in education, as well as scientific project with application for schools. But also experts and policymakers from other EU countries and the European Commission have been informed about the project's practical solution, and some or many fruitful discussion and new decisions have been encouraged for further transformation of education in Europe, such as we hold Zoom meetings, we had discussion at final conference, but also there were discussion after the project, such as discussion in Delta Group as well as others.
Thank you so much, Borut. Je dois à ce moment excuser la...
I would like to extend apologies for Daniela Ho, who represented the Great Duchy of Luxembourg, who is sick, unfortunately. She wanted to be with us and she wanted to speak about impact. So I will take some talking points by way of illustration. As the colleague said, the volumes of classes when this mechanism was put together covered more than 1,000 classes. 35,000 teachers are using it. 16,000 teachers use the MOOC just for the French part. And use the digital forum with questions. So basically making a learning community at the European level. It covers 5 languages, and the open textbook has thousands of downloads and views on the landing page, on the web page, which testifies to the fact that this service hits the right target and meets the need of teachers in the field across the 5 countries, but many more. As Colin said, the textbook is an open science textbook with many requests for translation. And what was co-developed and co-published with 5 countries will shed light on decisions for many other countries. It was a complicated process, but we all progressed as we moved forward. Sometimes we had disagreement on the what, but we agreed on the urgency of developing something together in a joint effort to help teachers to make enlightened choices, to test, to experiment, and to learn by walking. And it is just a first step forward. Now, I40 is available for everyone, and to us, it is not a perfect tool, but it exists. And as Laurent said initially, the first building blocks are here on AI, what we are talking about AI, what are the do's and the don'ts for AI. Now, it's only one step. We need to keep moving forward. We were fortunate enough that this project was selected by the European Union and was validated by UNESCO as a reference training program that UNESCO recommends in the Digital Education Hub. It is represented as a good example, and we were fortunate to be qualified jointly with Spain and Lithuania to keep working on AIDL.
For Myriam Campos, if you are here, I hope so, du ministère espagnol. Pour nous.
Of the Spanish Ministry to share the future prospects.
Thank you for the introduction. I represent INTEF, National of Educative Technologies, which is part of the Spanish Ministry of Education. Thank you for inviting me to participate. It's a pleasure to share space with you. In our case, we heard about the AI4T project at same events where the results of the project were present, and we found it very interesting. A little later, the opportunity arose to collaborate on the new AIDL project, and it seemed like a good idea to be able to explore and share at European level on the topic of data literacy, which is one of the fundamental aspects on the field of AI. For us, this new collaboration made perfect sense, given that at INTEF we have been working in the field of AI for a few years in the national project Schools of Computational Thinking and Artificial Intelligence, which was developed between 2018 and 2022, with a total participation of just over 3,000 teachers. On the other hand, we devote our action to promoting the integration of digital technologies in education, with which AI has guided special importance for us. And last year, we published the Guide on the Use of Artificial Intelligence in Education. With all this activity at the national level, it's a great opportunity to share and explore with our European colleagues in this new project on data literacy of the field of AI. Within that, INTEF offers training for teachers in several topics, for example, classroom activities with computational thinking or AI education course, and we think that it will be very useful for this project. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Myriam.
Thank you very much, Miriam. Before we conclude, I wanted to say that this project has been supported and has been desired by the Union, and in European level funding supported the project. I also wanted to say that we are delighted to work together with 5 initial countries and now 7 countries working on these new prospects. The clear fact of having to and fro discussions with the teams at the European level gives us the right standard, the right demand to look at impacts, challenges and needs on AI in education. So we know that we won't have a finalized solution. The first step was made together, and together in a joint effort, we will be moving forward, and nothing is impossible when we unite ourselves, when we unite our forces as Europeans. AI applications are now integrated into our daily use. They are also used in education as the automated translation of text, dialoguing with educational chatbots, or automated recommendations of educational resources. A teacher can then answer the question, what is the place and role and impact of these AI solutions in my educational practices? What can AI bring to my pupils and students? How can AI tools support the change in the education system? The objective of this MOOC is to help teachers and the educational community to answer these questions by providing light on the potential use of AI in education, the foundations of AI and its limits, the different types of AI solutions and the role of data, the AI tools and precautionary use in education. The training session involves a large range of contents, text, video, activities and quiz to concretely embrace the AI technology and solutions, providing support to the enlightened use of AI tools in education. This MOOC program was developed and made available to teachers and heads of schools in the context of the European project called Artificial Intelligence for and by Teachers, which convened and brought together 17 partners, ministries, universities, training and evaluation organizations in France, Ireland, Italy, Luxembourg, and Slovenia. Each resource in the program is accessible in 5 languages and is freely reusable to make it possible for everyone to develop their own training session. Join the MOOC program, discover and experiment AI to form your own opinion on use and challenges in the field of education. How to produce and reuse AI, Gen AI resources. Generative AI solutions can be used in several ways. Their goals is to produce content, can be text, can be images, it can be slides or videos. So they can be used as a basis for working and producing the contents for a class or an activity or an exercise. They can also be used as educational resources to reuse and reutilize. Take an existing resource, submitting the resource in PDF format, and request that the system adapted by isolating part of the context to reinterpret and convert and extract into a classroom activity, or changing the format of a resource, making it possible to use these resources for the future, converting a format which would be in a MOOC mode with lots of educational segments, and reinterpreting it or providing a cross-cutting horizontal access in the form of a training pathway. It can be used to automatically update contents by submitting a PDF file and generating a prompt to isolate those segments which would require updating and amending. You can ask GenAI solutions to identify the segment of a text which they consider is obsolete or erroneous, and then you can rewrite this text segment and re-inject it in the updated text with free educational resources and old resources being updated. You can use it to navigate in languages. It can be translating of a text, it can be simplification of a text with a text which can be interesting but which is for university students. So you can adapt an MIT lesson and adapt it into a high school in France. You need to translate it, you need to simplify it, you need to extract the interesting and valuable information. And if you extend this mechanism, you have examples of capsules which can be produced for micro-learning sessions where 3D avatars are used. You can enter your text, you can produce your slides, and you can have a 3D avatar presenter which will present the micro-learning training content using the resource which we have just created.
Nous arrivons maintenant à la...
We now are coming to the third and last part of this morning session, which is about reviewing some projects, and we'll have Florence Biot, the Deputy Director for Educational Resources. Hello everyone. The training of teachers has been our priority using MOOC programs, PIX plus EDU, platform, and we've just seen a video on it for developing professional skills for teachers and educators. And also we build on hybrid pathways of different formats using our Magister platform. Thanks to the TNE program of France 2030, we now have regional demonstrators. We selected 12 regions with different social and economic features and characteristics, where teachers are trained into AI solutions, where pupils and students have been using AI solutions for reading, writing, mathematics, languages. You've seen a video on language learning, and soon, with the help of researchers, we'll be using AI to prevent pupils from dropping out of the education system. And we are using research in these respects, which Colin mentioned a bit earlier. Julie, you are a trainer in the Canopy Network. You've been highly invested in this new platform project. Julie will tell us about AI solutions for teachers. Hello everyone. So I'm the coordinator jointly with two colleagues on the Humanities for Education Network, and I'm also a coordinator in my region, which is Val-de-Marne, which is a cluster for providing AI and Gen AI solutions for teachers. And I will present to you the contents of these training sessions which have been developed to meet the needs of teachers. So, as was mentioned in the previous panel, Mr. Le Baron spoke about the reluctant category of people. Well, AI has been generating lots of feelings among teachers, very strong feelings. You have the enthusiasts, the early adopters, as were mentioned, and among the reluctant ones, and among the other 80%, you have those who are afraid of being overtaken or of being made obsolete. They are also the angry ones. We mentioned the fact that it is difficult for those teachers to motivate people, and they are the disappointed ones, those who have tested the tool, some while back, and they've carried out their tests with their own demands, with their own standards, and possibly they were disappointed by the results. So our goal is to overcome these strong emotions, and the first building block that we use in the training process is to help these people to understand this technology, to understand that generative AI solutions generate a response, which is a statistics-based response, and that needs to be explained very tangibly. To do that, we like to use the Vita Science platform, which is a platform dedicated to code and language training. Now, this platform shows text-based GenAI solutions with character strings, and for image GenAI solutions, you have the various steps for generating images. Once you help people to understand this technology, that feelings are overcome, you come to the second stage and the second building block in training, which is to discover by way of practicing, by way of putting things into practice. What we like is that we don't discover these tools by way of the tool themselves. We take the angle of the stakes and challenges. You have lots of issues and challenges with education, personal data, law, regulations, environmental impact of these tools, and the biases as well generated by the use of these tools. So these questions and issues and challenges have to be met, and the Canopy network has produced lots of resources which we use in our training sessions. It is important that we do not start discovering the tools by the tools themselves, because tools change, there are new releases, new versions, new languages, but the persistent part is everything about posture, everything about the approach and methodology to use these tools. And this is what we are working on with the teachers. Now, we remind teachers about the ethical and regulatory framework in which teachers are required to use these AI solutions. Once all this has been explained, we go into in-depth putting into practice of Gen AI solutions into training. What we do is we work on the calibration and configuration of these tools. And this reassures teachers, because they realize that in order to obtain qualitative results from Gen AI solutions, you have to train them by injecting them with skills and data and knowledge. Then we work on interaction with the machines, showing teachers that they can't be content with initial results, that they need to keep discussing with the machines to keep improving the results. And another tangible action we took in our training sessions is comparing language models, because teachers, like anyone else, very often enter the practice of Gen AI by way of ChatGPT. And they have taken habits, and there's a need of showing them that there are other language models than ChatGPT with their own qualities, with their own defects, sometimes better in a number of areas, which is something we do with them in our training sessions. And then finally, in a last step, what we do is in order to meet the needs of these teachers with a variety of profiles, some having adopted the Gen AI solutions a while back, others having not been using them. So the Canopy network offers a number of formats, be they workshops, conferences, or live events in different forms and types. It can be in person, it can be online. And these are as many opportunities to coordinate communities of sharing and communities of practice. We saw teachers start a process of designing conversational chatbots applied to training education, and they went beyond the in-person training session. They went into further training, and they shared the results of their process with their peers. And this was very fruitful and constructive, because we saw teachers share with their peers a number of tools and solutions to help teachers improve the educational materials, to provide a variety of teaching methods, and we have many teachers who embrace these tools as helps to their teaching day in, day out in the classroom. I would conclude before I turn into Gaël Ledréau, Director for International Solutions. At the end of these training sessions, what we want is that the teachers have understood the full possibilities provided by these Gen AI solutions, that they have formed their own judgment, critical judgment on these tools, that they are able to select the right, most appropriate tools with respect to their needs, and they've observed that it has made them save time, and they now understand better why the students and pupils of theirs have been using these tools. So basically bringing them back to their own initial concerns and reluctance, basically changing the way they assess students and pupils, the way they provide homework to pupils, basically going back to the heart of their profession. Thank you very much, Julia. A few concluding remarks here to show how impactful our work has been. In late 2024, more than 10,000 teachers have been trained into Gen AI solutions based on the process which was just explained by Julia. Now, all of our training sessions is accessible on an online platform called Training into AI by Canopy, quote unquote. And this approach and these values have also been deployed outside of continental France. Thanks to the strong partnership we have with the French Association for Education, the AFE, we work with other training organizations to extend the training sessions we do outside of France. And we also have cooperation activities. We are a partner in a project with 11 French-speaking African countries, and we've been including our training sessions into these educational cooperation efforts. We've had requests from Tunisia, from Lebanon, or from Kenya, where we've been incorporating our training sessions to their programs. Thank you very much to the two of you. So after the training of teachers, we'll be presenting an activity of training for students and pupils. It is important that pupils and students get trained with expert solutions, that they get the full potential of AI across disciplines and jobs. This is why the campus of jobs and professions was created by Sorbonne University, and Julien will show us an internship session provided to high school students. Thank you. Hello, everyone. So my name is Julien. I work with the Sorbonne University in the Sorbonne Center for AI, which aims at placing AI at the core of our research and innovation, education and training programs. And this is done across the university, covering 55,000 students across science and engineering, humanities and healthcare disciplines. Now, to pick up on what the Minister for Education said, Sorbonne University is the award winner of the AI Cluster Program, which is part of France's AI strategy, which has enabled us to expand our collaboration efforts with new partners in academia, like political sciences and the CNAM Institute, and we get co-funding as we worked with more than 60 industrial companies. This AI Cluster Program has made it possible to accelerate our training program with expertise developing program for master level programs, and we're able to introduce AI contents as early as bachelor level, because we can't train healthcare professionals, doctors or language specialists without having been trained in AI, so that they can utilize AI, and in order to make them, if not experts, at least a specialist of it. We wanted to go further in our training programs by creating a so-called campus of AI professions and qualifications in order to create a collective effort and continuum from primary school to the higher education, and to make these scientific disciplines more attractive, to make sure we could grow and develop the next generation talents in order to maintain our sovereignty with AI. We've set up this campus with the 3 universities, Paris, Créteil, Versailles, the Greater Paris Regional Authority, and the various companies that were listed here. The 3 goals were to create and develop training pathways in order to create this continuum between primary, secondary, high school, and higher education. The second goal was to promote AI jobs and professions and make sure that we could foster job integration, reaching out to more girls and young women. And the third goal was to place AI at the heart of educational innovation, but we won't be dwelling on this today. The concrete example is a summer school in AI for high school students. Now, high school students for 2 weeks on a school campus is a great idea. This has been the 3rd class. The first class was for young feminine high school students, and then we repeated this with Year 12 students, having them discover AI with 15 researchers and teachers, 30 schools and universities involved across the Greater Paris area. We involved high school teachers as well as 25 companies, and all this organized itself. Now, with respect to the program, the agenda, and the goals, our desire was that we worked on ethical and environmental impacts of AI. The second aspect is that all of the process was designed and developed by researchers and teachers and professors using a fact-based and science-based approach, and wanted to go beyond generative AI. We wanted to have all AI solutions being discovered. The first thing was to open the hood to debunk what AI was about, using the game of NIM to understand machine learning, and using perceptron to understand the modus operandi of neuronal networks, and to go beyond the wow effect. Then we wanted to look into the use of AI to serve research, how you can use data sets, training these data sets, and how the researchers of Sorbonne University use these data sets to predict and model events which will help them discover scientific innovations. And then how can AI can be put at the service of businesses to create startup companies, but also to help businesses organize and onboard AI, so with 3-day sessions with businesses, and AI creativity, meeting with artists, performers, plastic performers, and other types of artists and performers, of how they use AI to not hamper or hinder their creativity using AI. So we were able to survey 120 high school students participating in this program. They said 3 things. Number 1, most of them wanted to go into scientific, engineering, or mathematical professions. Number 2, we need testimonials to have role models. We had Aurélie Jean basically hypnotized her audience for 2 hours. And then you need to demultiply workshops, visits and tours to laboratories, so that people understand how. And this is valid irrespective of what you want to achieve, confirming that youth wants and need concrete, tangible examples and role model. By way of conclusion, we need to massify, we need to go mainstream. We had 1,000 applicants for only 50 places. We develop the engineering models. I can pass on this information to anyone who wants to want it. The next session will be at the secondary school because this is when this is the phase and stage of schooling when students and pupils need to already start thinking about their future. We are going to be opening up. We're going to be diversifying to vocational teaching and learning, and we have starting to do that by developing vocational pathways.
I see a number of people who would like to attend this training session. I hope that all of France's universities will open up their doors for the last 2 weeks of June for this session. And France has an opportunity to draw talent to its university courses, which this program has managed to open very broadly. Now we need to, of course, attract young people. There are a great many teachers who would like to spend less time grading homework. We now have Sébastien and Bastien who are going to tell us about Fidelia, which has been developed to correct language tests in an efficient manner and make corrections more, make marking, grading more efficient. Yes, well, indeed, at France Éducation Internationale, we took a winning bet. We chose to work with our partners to develop an AI solution called Fidelia to allow us to correct or to grade the written contributions of students to official exams. These are exams that are highly challenging. They're very important because they're there to as part of the public policies to grade the level of proficiency in the French language, so a very challenging, very important exam, and FEI must, of course, make sure that there is consistency in and loyalty to what has been corrected. There needs to be fairness in time and space in the correction when you are yourself grading a paper, but also from one grader to another. And that is what we have also had in mind when developing this model. And importantly, we worked around 3 sectors of expertise because to each his own. There's one from Belgium with the Catholic University of Louvain, their central laboratory. They have great experience in AI and automated language processing. The expertise here in the evaluation and grading of language skills was provided by FEI, and then Coexia organized all of the circuitry, and it was the interaction between these 3 stakeholders that allowed us to develop the model. So how does it work? Importantly, this is a hybrid man-machine solution for a number of reasons, for 2 reasons. First, social acceptability. If everything was done by a machine, it would be unacceptable. And then the model also needed to be retrained, and it needs to be fed with human expertise. So essentially, students write or type on the computer, the data is gathered, it's collected, and then the marking process starts in earnest with a human who does the marking, and on the other side, Fidelia, and if need be, a third correction, a third human correction is required if there is an inconsistency before the results are communicated to the candidate. And now over to Vincent. So the grading model is hybrid in the sense that we use both a deep learning model and knowledge that comes from professional expertise in the assessment of candidate production based on a number of criteria. What we have done is that we have mixed the best of both worlds, the world of deep learning, which is very effective. The model we use is the Camembert model. You heard the Minister talk about the Albert model. 50% of AI currently is non-generative. It's what classifies or grades Netflix or radiologists. There are a lot of uses. And we've forgotten they even exist, but they're very important. So we've tried not to forget about non-gen AI. So we conducted research to try and determine the efficiency of such a model. We took 138,000 candidates, corrected by humans, double-blind. Both do not know what the level is given by the other grader. And if you see nothing particular here, it means that the breakdown of levels, 138,000, is almost exactly the same when you have a human plus a machine solution or when you have two humans. I think you can see a kind of Promethean shockwave here, which we're trying to correct. So what is the added value of the Fidelia solution? Since November 2024, almost 3 months ago, we have graded 48,000 papers, total saving of 5,629 hours of grading, savings 201,000 euros. And since we've been using Fidelia, there has been constant progress of the acceptance of computerized corrections by candidates, and the rate of candidates who wish to type their papers on computers is increasing. So automated correction doesn't seem to be, or grading, doesn't seem to be a hindrance. So what you see here is a sliding average of our consistency rate. It's when the decision of the machine and the human is consistent or very close. And what you can see here is that on the one hand you have evaluation by two humans, on the other one by a human and a machine, and you can see that consistency is much higher. The consistency of results handed down to our candidates is much greater with the use of this model. So you have, again, this Promethean aspect here. These are the results with one grader, a sliding average of the 300, and you can see it's also very well perceived by the graders, again, because when you take two human beings, what you do is that you add the mistakes they both make. When there are two people, they together can make quite a few mistakes. While Fidelia is a machine solution which makes no erratic mistakes. Making mistakes is very much part of our human cells, and Fidelia is obviously not biological. We had to build tools. The first one was a fine-tuning array. We selected 402,000 tasks, which we calibrated, and we boiled that down to 27,000 tasks with a human participation to try to see what was flawed when they were too strict or too generous when grading papers, and that contributed to the model. So here what you have is the body of reference, the gold standard. Bad news. Fidelia is better than any of our graders. But the good news is that when you ask graders to grade the same production with a number of tasks, we had 55 graders. They corrected 10% of the tasks, and on average we have 9 of them who evaluated each of the tasks. And when you do that, what you will note is that automated solutions cannot beat humans. Never. No system has the ability to predict a consensus, the consensus of all humans. So what we did next was to develop a body of research which is made freely available to researchers. 6,500 tasks open up a great many opportunities for the French language. There are around 30 research labs who have asked to work on that data. What does that mean? Well, in very real terms, we have people who are working on automation of the French language assessment, and that is great news for all learners of French as a foreign language. So, human and machine in grading. Candidates will never be assessed purely by an automated solution. That is impossible for the reasons that Sébastien was explaining, social acceptability notably. But the fact that the AI model can only predict the past, it can only work on the past. The French language should probably not evolve that much, Racine and Molière. But when you go back to ancient French, to Old French, things are more complicated. Nothing is set in stone for a language, and we don't know what will happen when the language evolves. And what evolves quickly is the social usage of language. Remember what we used to do before, during, and after COVID. AI is considerably changing the way we live our lives, and it will show up in the productions of our candidates. We will need to check whether what candidates will be writing in 2027 is something we are still able to evaluate. And we therefore need to use human competence in monitoring the relevance of the solution. We need to make sure that the level of consistency and fairness is always good, and if there's a deterioration in quality, we will need to retrain or to again fine-tune the model. We need to take into consideration the judgment of our graders. So I heard the word camembert. I shall add some butter from Normandy to that. And I would say that the next steps are probably also as part of an open source approach to roll all of that out on the verbal grading of mastery of the French language, and to see what also happens with pen and paper exams through optical character recognition. Of course, you've all heard about the potential savings that could be generated. You can imagine that there are some fine nationwide cohorts. So you could imagine for France, but also for abroad, that we could work to improve on the exactness of the grading process. Many thanks for your attention. Many thanks to both of you. So you can see all of the potential application for grading these exam papers, less time for teachers. Will they be panicking or will they be reassured? It's up to us to show them what can be done. And will they dare to innovate? So we're now going to close the morning with the General Inspector for Education, Sports and Research, Olivier Sidokpo, who will show us through a short video how important it is to train management level individuals. Many thanks. Thank you, Florence. So, of course, this is a complex task. I will need to transition with a video, but we were told that we would have a high-level ministerial panel discussion. I think you have delivered on that, and I would like to pay tribute to and thank our foreign guests who have come from abroad. I can see Inano Kyriazi, the Council of Europe. I can see Mr. Dimitrov from the European Commission, and Pia, the Director General, is still online and watching this. So many thanks to them, and Adash Schleicher from the OECD. And I think your presence was very, very important and shows how significant this issue is. So, little by little, the French baccalaureate is coming closer and closer. So, as you know, there's a philosophy exam. So, is creating a framework the opposite of acting? I won't develop this in the three conventional parts. but the answer seems to be no, quite clearly, if we look at this morning's proceedings. Creating a framework is not the opposite of action, and in fact, quite the contrary, it could probably enable action, and Minister Bonn said so. Maybe creating a framework is probably also setting a compass point, using a compass point to action, to set our administrations in motion with things for both students and teachers, and quite quickly. And then creating a framework, and there again, I would like to thank Olivier Mandrouille and the DREIC, the digital department with Audran and Florence, for organizing this morning's event with experts who I think separately could probably have spoken for at least half an hour and kept people interested, and they had to stick to 4 minutes, and unfortunately, but with this art of a rational approach and of listening and of dialogue and conversation, I think it made it all very interesting for all of us here in Europe. And then, of course, the framework is also what enabled discussion, debate, and ideas to develop. So I am indeed an Inspector General, so on the durable, on the lasting knowledge, or the so-called resilient knowledge, a poem by Heine, a painting by Giorgione, a mathematical theorem, or high-tech action. And I think that resilient knowledge, there's always a fear that sometimes it will not be transmitted to future generations. And I think that that resilient knowledge needs to be learned. And that was said a number of times in the course of the panel discussions, particularly the final one. And it's true to say that artificial intelligence creates a lot of concern. Is there not here knowledge that no longer needs to be learnt, that would be a given, an effortless given? And I think what we heard was very reassuring, because if there is something that resists AI, it's AI itself. What is it? What does it mean? And there, a framework is necessary. So, of course, the framework is very concrete. The framework here is schools, is teachers, school manuals, but it's also a symbolic framework. And I think we have talked a lot about the usage framework that is not connected to usages in a practical way, saying, be careful, this is bad for you, this is going to harm you. But it creates perhaps a better idea of what is truly meaningful in terms of knowledge. And I think that each of the speakers would convey the values of the institution they were representing, the Council of Europe, of course. The usage is deeply intertwined with human rights. That's what they do. The European Commission has a focus on competitiveness so that Europe can remain a protective environment. For the digital arm of the Ministry of National Education, it's the values of the public service of education that are crucial. So everyone has their own usage charters or principles, and everyone explained how they take learning into consideration. And when we talked about the book, AI for Teachers, it is full of the values of research, sharing, rational debate, open-mindedness, non-profit, and a greater opening towards increased and enhanced cooperation. And I think these broader cooperations are an extremely important point. Audran said so, and it was also evoked in the final roundtable and panel discussion. The question of openness, and openness to both men and women, boys and girls, is a true challenge. In truth, there is quite a bit of math and IT in IA, but in a very different guise, and that was said by some. That is not what it looks like. to the teachers and educators who are interested. It's more like literature or conversation or an art form or preparing a lecture or a lesson. And here, I think many other disciplines can be called upon. Sciences of education, philosophy, sociology, and all of this is needed to truly understand AI. And I think that approach may attract profiles which, unfortunately, do not spontaneously want to go towards math and IT. But then, of course, AI is also a hot topic at the moment. There are huge financial implications. And historically, these are factors that have a tendency to attract men more than women. Look at IT in the 80s. Geeks fully transformed a discipline that was, prior to that, a more feminine one. So let us pay attention and make sure that 5 or 10 years down the line, we don't end up in a room full of men with women and girls who are led to believe that it's not for them. And then, of course, openness. That was discussed as part of the AI4T project, openness towards other countries. We were at the General Inspectorate with general inspectors from the Republic of Djibouti the other day, who said that they had managed to make their digital transition, but they were worried about the fact that AI was a train they were going to miss. And they said, what can you do with us, for us, so that we aren't left aside by that development? So we need to provide training about these values. We need to think. We need to integrate countries within Europe and outside Europe, and we need to co-construct AI with them. Co-construct an AI that is consistent with our values, that can probably save us a lot of tedious work. Marking papers, of course, has its own charm, and also to set aside more time for knowledge, for the beauty of knowledge, which is the most important thing for us, and which we would like to see persist. So, of course, creating a framework means also training of our managers, of our cadres. There was an initiative about the use of AI in schools, both on the educational and on the admin side. And what the minister said in her introduction is that the fact that AI was already there. They didn't wait for experimentation to use it to make to write their emails or generate executive summaries or other things which they would tend not to admit to their superiors because they're not quite sure it's permitted. So it's an important challenge, but it's as much a question of exchanging than of training, because very often the top level that implements all of this will be faced with people who are already using these solutions in an expert way. So all of that requires expertise and experimentation. And one example is the symposium that brings together all sort of managers in the world of education with panel discussions, with PhD students, with practitioners who would like to have the point of view of research, evaluations, and practitioners who work in higher education management and who are wondering whether they can push this further within a trusted framework. So, in conclusion, I suggest we now watch a video together. And again, many thanks to all of our speakers in this very, very high-level morning of proceedings. I'm being slightly hyperbolic there, but I think that these are subjects that are going to keep us busy and keep us resistant and lead to more dialogue.
in fine, artificial intelligence in education. Introduction. What is artificial intelligence about? What is AI today? In short, it's three interlocking boxes which represent a major research program I was talking about called artificial intelligence. It's not the best choice of word, but we can come back to it. But the dominant paradigm in artificial intelligence today is machine learning, which is basically data-driven, based on AI, i.e. how I perform a task based on data. I have an algorithm that will learn to perform a particular task based on the data I provide. So that is machine learning, and within machine learning there is a sub-discipline of machine learning called deep learning. Once again, we are talking about automatic learning, in other words, learning using neural networks. Now, neural networks are not new. As I stated previously, they originated in the 1950s. At the time, it didn't work so well. But it started to work better about 15 years ago because the necessary technology was developed. But it's important to bear in mind that neural networks and deep networks in particular are effective for certain specific tasks, but for tasks that don't require a lot of data and are less complex, other techniques exist alongside deep learning. AI is at the heart of the digital education strategy we published in 2030 for the period 2023-2027. There are 4 challenges for AI in schools. The first challenge is simply to learn what AI is about, how it works, what are the risks related to AI, and how we can benefit from it. Schools have a fundamental role to play there. Second challenge is to train specialists in AI, because this is an issue of national and European sovereignty. We need to train boys and girls in AI. The third challenge is to use AI to support learning. This is how AI can provide personalized remediation, personalization in teaching. And finally, the fourth challenge is to simplify the work of teachers. AI can also be used to help teachers in their day-to-day work, to help them mark their papers, to help them prepare their lessons, and so on and so forth. So these are the so-called generative AIs. This word generative, quote-unquote, has somewhat invaded the AI landscape, the media landscape too, but once again, you need to understand that there's no magic behind it. These are mechanisms I described earlier at work with neural networks of absolutely colossal size. Basically, what's been different is that the general public has been introduced to these techniques through this new tool, this machine-human interface that is the prompt. But otherwise, these technologies had already been around for a number of years, and the basic building blocks of these generative models has existed since 2017, and it's called transformers or attention models. So this has been a huge evolution rather than a revolution, an evolution in the field. Now, what is it about? It's simplifying in the diagram showing you, but this building block is fundamental. Why is it fundamental? Well, in a sentence, which can also be an image or a video sequence, what we are trying to do is to understand what's happening at any given moment, not by looking at the moment as a whole, but by looking at the sentence as a whole. That's why these models are called attention models. We pay particular attention to the context. A word does not have the same meaning depending on the context in which it is used. This 2024 session marks a change from the 2023 session. Whereas in 2023 we were in the era of pioneers and pioneering in the process of showing experiments being carried out, this year we already are in the era of thinking and reflection on experiments, for example with young PhD students who have come to present us with reflections, feedback and impact studies. And we can see that in just 1 year we have really developed our skills, our expertise and our thinking on a subject that is constantly evolving. So what we wanted to show with the diversity of these examples is that teaching AI or teaching with AI already exists. It already exists at different levels, from primary school to the final year of high school, but also at the university level. What we wanted to show is that teaching AI requires preparation. So we have also talked about research into this topic. And what was also important to show was that there are different media, the diversity of media that are used with traditional methods, with debates, with online systems, with robots. We really wanted to show that great degree of diversity. AI and professional practices. So colleagues working with AI need to consider what is at stake for the student, how the student sees the AI, how the student uses the AI, and how I need to adapt to serve the student in terms of inclusion as well, how AI can help me adapt my educational project to serve each and every student. The third question is how to work through and across disciplines and share AI-enhanced resources, or on the contrary, how to keep them at a distance, for example, by using collective chatbots or bots. And then there is the question of acculturation to AI. Colleagues are very heterogeneous with AI. There are colleagues who are starting to make progress and use AI on a daily basis, and then there are colleagues who know nothing but have a desire to learn. The issue of AI is relevant to all school subjects, but it is particularly relevant to modern languages for a number of reasons. One of the most obvious is that online translators are among the best-known AI tools, which have been fundamentally changing the meaning of language learning and plurilingualism. Now, tomorrow's language courses, with the assistance offered by AI, will be courses in which students will be trained fundamentally in cross-cultural mediation. In other words, when I have a text and I need to adapt this text for another audience, how do I adapt it? How do I transform it? Supporting the transformation of teachers, professional gestures, and skills can be organized into 4 points. So the first is to build confidence and trust and remind teachers of their professional standards. The second is the issue of transforming, redefining, and increasing the professional skills of teachers. The third is training and support for teachers who are fully active and agile. And the fourth will be to guarantee an ethical, legal, and at the same time critical framework for the use of artificial intelligence and all its aspects. I believe that there is an urgent need to acculturate people to AI everywhere, of course, and especially in the regions. There is a risk of huge inequality in terms of knowledge and access to this technology, which is going extremely fast in terms of how it's used and the future developments that we don't know yet about. When we saw the initiative taken by the National Council of Digital Technology with the development of AI cafes, jointly with the educational authorities, with all our partners, a great idea to make AI accessible to all citizens by means not only of training, but also of exchanges and sharing where people come to share their practices by being together. It may seem paradoxical, but when it comes to these subjects, we need to exchange ideas, to share, to talk to each other, to get out of our usual thinking habits and confront your views. This new era campus is part of a story, the story of transforming the historic and iconic Futuroscope Pavilion into a digital education pavilion that will welcome a wide range of visitors, not only students, pupils, many of whom will be school children, but also trainers, supervisors from the national education system, teachers, and of course, parents and families. The innovation richness of this project lies first and foremost in all the partners who got together to create it and who, in a complementary way, will give it a real impact. They have come together to develop training programs for pupils, students, and teachers, and to raise awareness among families. In fact, AI methods and practices are rarely used in the phases of learning and memorization on the one hand. On the other hand, in the memory reactivation phase, I'll be able to use it and I'll find it relevant, for example, to make quizzes from my lessons, or in language classes to make lists of important vocabulary to translate, to play little games. So it is true that AI is very convenient for this. It produces quizzes very quickly, and I'm going to use it now in our high school. We use computers, we use emailing to correct email, to correct text in French and philosophy, all that kind of thing. The AI solutions do that very well. When it comes to education, AI raises issues that are already well covered by regulations. First of all, there's the GDPR, which protects all personal data in general, but in particular the data of minors, which is of a particular concern. We are thinking, of course, of the problems of discrimination in allocation algorithm, but more generally issues connected with the algorithms and systems which will assess and even adapt educational pathways, which can sometimes have far-reaching consequences for the curricula and pathways of the students at hand. At Infine, this is the annual management training event. This is the third year in running that we have invited all inspectors, head teachers, and managers who wish to attend this AI training moment. Why we are doing this? To understand the technology, how it works, to be able to use the tool, and to use the tools more, to know how to use them wisely, relevantly, to discuss how these tools are used, should be used, what framework, what knowledge and skills are needed to use AI tools. These are as many questions that need to be discussed. And it's not just a question of a top-down training, it's a question of training together all managers in the aggregate. However, since we have been organizing the Infine platform, we've seen new perceptions. At the beginning, it was all about exploring, testing, proof of concept. Now we can see from the presentations that teachers are already taking a step back and taking perspective from the practices and uses of AI. So it's really very valuable and interesting. And when we have these regular meetings, then we'll see that perception on technology change and the way we teach using these technology, all this will be changing. Thank yous. A report made with the support of the digital department.
Bien, mesdames, messieurs.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, some last concluding remarks to thank you all